Hey everyone, my name is WyrmsEye and I welcome you back to another episode of the Battlespot Factory, our VGC Battlespot series. So today's episode is going out Tuesday evening, UK time. I hope you enjoyed the first week of videos that we put out with this team, this Arcanine, Hariyama, Nihilego, Alolan Raichu, Tapu Bulu and Tapu Koko team. We've had a rocky start to begin with, but we have managed to win out since our first episode, albeit in the last episode we did have two opponents that had connection issues. Hopefully we won't see the same today, so we will just jump straight into the ladder and see who we can find for our first opponent. I am looking in the short to medium term about doing a rehash on this team. I have had some ideas about how I think it could be improved. The Alolan Raichu and the Tapu Koko does have its merits, but I think there is a better way that it can be structured with the core four of Arcanine, Hariyama, Nihilego and Bulu. So I am looking into ideas about how to change it. I am doing a bit of dabbling on other various forms, such as my spare cart, to get that up to speed and also give it a bit of a test run. So hopefully we may see that at the tail end of this week, where I make some adjustments, may even put out a video describing what the adjustments I've made are, and we may use this team for an additional week leading into the Birmingham Regional Championships, obviously to tide over until then. But enough dabbling about the team. Our opponent Relda carries a team of Milotic, Aerodactyl, Buzzwole, Arcanine, Nihilego and Tapu Koko. So a couple of very interesting things on the table here. The Milotic and the Aerodactyl are not very often seen. They were more of a Aerodactyl was more a staple seen in 2014. Milotic much more prevalent in 2015. But the Milotic does give some issues to bringing Arcanine, which is useful for dealing with the Buzzwole. However, I do think we have options to go with Raichu and Tapu Koko straight off the bat. I think Hariyama is still strong as ever. And I think for our last, I'm going to bring Tapu Bulu as well. So not bringing Nihilego here, even though it could prove useful against the Arcanine, my opponent's opposing Tapu Koko. I do feel it's somewhat threatened more with this team that my opponent has. The Aerodactyl can prove a bit tricky to deal with, and we actually see that my opponent leads off with Aerodactyl and Nihilego. So a very strong opening partnership from my opponent. Double rock lead as well, it must be noted. But we do have some options to start off with. I'm debating whether or not there is mileage in going for... This is... The thing is, this is difficult to start off with because if I fake out into Nihilego and Aerodactyl happens to use Skydrop onto the Raichu, I can't protect the Raichu the next turn, and the Nihilego gets a free hit to knock it out. So what I am going to do is I am going to fake out into Nihilego. I am going to try and Volt Switch into the Aerodactyl. I am expecting the Aerodactyl to go for this Skydrop, but we actually see a Tailwind, which is fine by me actually. So we do get our Volt Switch off. We do take the Aerodactyl down to a Focus Sash. And with the Volt Switch we can actually bring in our Hariyama here. So with this entire turn, the Raichu is still the fastest thing. Well, no, I tell a lie. The Raichu isn't the fastest thing on the field against the Aerodactyl, but with Hariyama being switched in, we now have the opportunity to feint the Aerodactyl and get a Psychic off onto the Nihilego. nothing should go wrong, right? The Nihilego obviously has the option to protect, which I would be absolutely fine with it doing. We also may see it switch out in favour of the Buzzwole, which I think is a stranger play still. So we do get this feint off into the Aerodactyl. Does secure the knockout. And this Psychic will be doing significant damage to the Buzzwole, I'm hoping. Over 50%. Not bad at all. Not bad at all. And what's really nice here is we still have the Focus Sash intact on our Raichu. Now I think Buzzwole has the Assault Vest, so I think the safest play for us is to Psychic into the Buzzwole, and I'm going to Heavy Slam into the Nihilego here. We may pick up the knockout, I'm not 100% sure. If Hariyama does pick up the knockout onto Nihilego, that will be a bonus. I don't think Nihilego can secure a knockout onto either of our two Pokemon. As you can see there, the Assault Vest paying dividends with resisting that Sludge Bomb damage, and Nihilego does go down to the Heavy Slam. So we've taken really massive command of the game here with our lead of Raichu and Tapu Koko, and this is why I think this sort of lead can do such amazing work against a variety of leads as we've seen. And I don't think we need to worry too much. I think Hariyama will be going down come what may, so I am just going to go for a feint into the Tapu Koko and Psychic it with the Raichu, but our opponent forfeits here, so a very quick battle to start off today's episode. And much in the same way, the Aerodactyl going for the Tailwind turn 1 didn't benefit our opponent at all. We were able to get the Aerodactyl down to the Focus Sash with our Tapu Koko from Volt switching into it. We then had the opportunity to bring in Hariyama. Feint then also picked up the remaining HP on the Aerodactyl, knocking it out before it could do any major damage. And this meant that our Raichu was able to get damage onto the partner unhindered. Excuse me. And obviously we just managed to snowball the game from there. So I'm really happy with how I played that game, and obviously the lead did a lot to help us get through that battle. So we will jump right back onto the ladder and try and find another opponent very quickly. And yeah, I think this shows how this team can steamroll some teams very quickly, but it obviously needs a bit of forethought for certain teams. As we see a Japanese rated opponent, or is that might be South Korean actually. Again, I think in the 1600s with a team of Arcanine, Alolan Persian, Tapu Koko, Kartana, Snorlax and Tapu Fini. This mirrors our Game 1 opponent from Sunday's episode, believe it or not. So I think Sunday's opponent was using a QR code team, so this could very well be the exact team that is being used. And in a similar measure, I don't see why I can't go for the same four that I chose in that game either. Again, I think we got an opportunity to obviously see how this game can play out again. It will be interesting to see whether my opponent goes with the same leads as the opponent that I had in Sunday's episodes. So if it is the same lead, we would be expecting a Tapu Koko and Alolan Persian. We actually see Persian and Tapu Fini here, so An interesting opener, not totally surprising, but does give us a bit of a change in proceedings. So what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to switch Hariyama in for the Arcanine, and I am going to just go for the Sludge Bomb into the Tapu Fini. I'm hoping that my opponent just decides to fake out the Hariyama and go for a Moonblast with the Fini into that slot, thinking, oh, the Hariyama should go down here. It is a bit of an educated risk. We do see the Persian fake out actually into the Nihilego this time, so what is the Fini going for? A Calm Minds. Okay. A good move by my opponent there, actually, understanding that it would have been a free Calm Mind if we decided that the Hariyama was too threatened, thinking that the Persian may fake it out. So, a good play there by my opponent. It makes sense, and obviously that free Calm Mind is going to provide a lot of difficulty for us. I do see this being a slight problem, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try and get rid of the Persian as soon as possible, and I'm going to Sludge Bomb into the Tapu Fini. Persian may well use Parting Shot into the Nihilego, which isn't unsurprising. It'll be interesting to see what the Persian actually brings in, what my opponent brings in lieu of the Persian. It is actually the Arcanine of their own. So, a lot of interesting moves being made, and my opponent is actually outplaying me very well here. We do get our Z move off, the Inferno Overdrive, but into the Arcanine it's not going to be doing too much damage. Had the Persian stayed in, we would almost certainly have picked up the knockout onto it, but I think here we may be losing our Arcanine for relatively cheaply, and this is effectively a wasted Z move as well. Does reasonable damage, but we actually see a Scald into the Arcanine. Now, as you can see, the raw power of this Tapu Fini is quite a sight to behold. But it does show leftovers, so it's not as offensively driven as most are. So it does mean we can bring in our Tapu Bulu here. I think Tapu Bulu makes more sense over the Hariyama at this stage. We have got some very decent damage onto the Arcanine, and I think Nihilego, even at -1, should be able to pick up the knockout with a Power Gem. I'm certainly hopeful of it. We will just use Horn Leech into the Tapu Fini and Power Gem into that Arcanine as well. If the Arcanine protects, that would be a good play for my opponent. It's possible, but I think we need to make we need to try and make something happen. The Arcanine does provide a big threat, and we do see it switch out in favour of Kartana. And it's actually the Tapu Fini that protects here. But we do get good damage onto the Kartana slot here. But the Horn Leech does go into protect. So this Kartana actually poses a big problem now. It does threaten both of our Pokemon on the field with, well, Smart Strike should secure the knockout onto Nihilego without a doubt. Tapu Bulu may be bulky enough to survive it, but if the Finny double targets, it could be a big problem for us. I feel like I need to make a play though. Gonna superpower into the Kartana and protect the Nihilego. So no protects from my opponent here. Let's see what this Kartana is actually going for. Smart Strike, but it's actually into the Bulu. As you can see, that doesn't secure the knockout, so is the Finny's Moon... Ah, it's double targeting. Good call by my opponent there, good call. And obviously, I think this actually seals the game for my opponent. Had we protected the Bulu and gone for an aggressive play with our Nihilego, we may have had a chance of at least applying some pressure in the following turns. But as it stands now, I think Tapu Fini basically wins the game from here. This pairing just basically wins the game, and it's a very strong pairing. And obviously, the Calm Mind early on put a lot of setup pressure, and that is basically all she wrote. Yeah, I am just going to forfeit here. I don't think there's any real benefit for my opponent trying to double protect here. If they went for a Moonblast and a Smart Strike into the Hariyama and the Nihilego either way, there's no way that I can KO either of the two Pokemon on the field with what I've got, because they're both inherently faster than what they're attacking. And I can only fake out one Pokemon and the other's going to go down. One of them's going to go down, and it then becomes a 4-on-1 situation. So good game to my opponent there. Very well played early game, and obviously that turn 1 play that they made was relatively risk-free. Obviously we could have traded fake outs and stopped the Calm Mind from the Finny very early on, but I felt I needed to make put some aggression on very early. Whether or not that was a sensible move on my part or not, it's something that I will have to review. Probably could have just gone for the straight fake out onto the Finny and obviously then played in from there. So yeah, there is obviously a lot that could be said about that opening turn from my side. Which is one of the things that I'm struggling with this team. I think sometimes my turn 1 plays make a lot of sense, and then there are times where I make very nonsensical plays that realistically are costing me battles that I'm not even getting a chance to play myself into, let alone have an opportunity to win. But I think I'm going to give you a third game for today's episode as we face off against Sanglot. With a rating of 1545, with a team of Smeagol, Xurkitree, Nihilego, Tapu Lele, Pheromosa, and Arcanine. Now, this team looks disturbingly familiar. I have a hunch that this could be a team of a friend of mine. I may be wrong, but this looks a lot like Daniel Etstekin's Sheffield Regional Top 8 team that he took, judging by the Pokemon that are on the team. And I do need to be very, very careful here, because there is a lot of scary stuff on this side of the field. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to lead with Raichu and Tapu Bulu. I also want... I want Coco and I want Hariyama. I need a lot of control, I think, with this team to actually get around it. The Smeargle does pose a significant threat in the form of it has a myriad of support options that it can bring to the table, such as Fake Out. Fake Out being the primary one. Spore is obviously something that I need to be very aware of. But we do see that my opponent actually leads off with the Circuitry and the Smeargle here. So, the Circuitry is under a lot of pressure, I think, from this first turn to potentially protect. I am just going to go for the... yeah, I need to Fake Out the Raichu here. Use Fake Out with the Raichu onto the Smeargle, even at the expense of a potential Spiky Shield. And I am just going to Horn Leech into this Circuitry straight away. But we don't see any Spiky Shield. The Smeargle does flinch. Circuitry opts to Tail Glow here straight away, as the Bulu does get its Horn Leech off. And as you can see, it's got a good defensive investment, which does put it in good stead. But that Tail Glow now puts it in a very scary position. And as we see, the Moody... a special defense raise is obviously something that's going to be a major problem for us. I'm going to switch in Tapu Koko here, and I'm going to protect the Bulu. The best play my opponent makes here is a Follow Me with the Smeargle, and probably a Dazzling Gleam with the Circuitry is what I would imagine is its best opportunity to go for. As we see, the Bulu does protect here. Smeargle does use Follow Me. And we'll see what the Circuitry does. Go for a Dazzling Gleam. So, Tapu Koko does take that, but we see Evasion Raise and a Speed drop from this Smeargle. So, this is where it gets very tricky, because we have to bank on whether or not the Smeargle carries Wide Guard, or if it goes for another Follow Me. And I don't think a Dazzling Gleam is going to pick up the Circuitry, come what may. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to Z-Power into the Circuitry, and I am just going to Horn Leech the Circuitry as well. We do actually see the Smeargle uses Follow Me, so we would have been better off actually just going for a regular Dazzling Gleam here, but I'm confident enough that we should be able to survive at least the Dazzling Gleam with the Bulu. It is going to be a long shot because Bulu's special defense is, I think, slightly lower than the Tapu Koko's. We do see the Dazzling Gleam here, so Tapu Koko does faint, and will pick up a Beast Boost, so now at +4. And Smeagol avoids the Horn Leech, so the evasion boost actually proving very useful for my opponent here. But we do see its evasion fall once again, so... Raichu or Hariyama? Raichu or Hariyama? Raichu. We need to make good use of the electric terrain as best we can. So I am just going to... Oh, that's dangerous. Fake out into the circuitry. And I'm just going to Horn Leech the circuitry again. We do see that the Smeagol does withdraw in favour of the Tapu Lele. So, good play by my opponent here. Obviously, we could have predicted that and we should have gone for the Psychic, but... yeah, we're in a lot of trouble now. Just the Lele alone, I think, is enough to clear up the game here now. Should have predicted that. Should have just gone straight for the Psychic into the circuitry. Yeah. That turn was a bit of a silly one by my end. I should have just Psychic the circuitry because... the worst case scenario for me there was the Smeagol goes for the follow me and the Psychic redirects into the Smeagol. We still would have lost the Bulu, but the Raichu would have held on anyway, so... yeah, it's a bit of a misnomer, and we actually see that the Lele is carrying the Scarf as well, which is a major pain in the arse. And Xurkitry's Dazzling Gleam at +5 should knock out this Hariyama without any difficulty at all. So yeah, 2 losses and a win in today's episode. Didn't play those last 2 games at all well, and that does concern me. As I said, I do want to make adjustments with this team, but I need to figure out why I'm making bad... I don't think I'm making the correct move, the correct plays in a turn-on-turn fashion all the time. There are some games that I'm playing that I can get calls correct a lot of the time, and I'm making win streaks of 5 or 6 wins on the trot. But I'm then having losses that I probably shouldn't be losing because I'm not making optimal plays, and that's something that I need to really grasp with this team. And I need to grasp that really quickly because I think this is a very strong team, and I know that it can do very well on the ladder. If the Japanese opponent that I played shows anything on that regard, I think this is a very strong team, but I just need to learn where the intricacies lie in it and make better use of it. But I think I will call it a day, guys. So if you did like the episode, do click that like button. It would be very much appreciated. If you want to get more updates on content in the future from me, click subscribe. And if you want to leave any comments about the content that we're doing and content that you would like to see, do comment in the section down below. I do read all the comments, and I will hopefully be bringing you more varied content with the fact that I've got this new laptop and I've got more processing power to work with. But until the next episode of the Battle Spot Factory, guys, I do bid you farewell and goodbye for now.